All right, we are back. Oh man, that is awful news. Elon Musk has been found alive at his home at 53 years old. YouTube won, so we're going to do YouTube watching, and that is going to be through the RevCord media share list. Unfortunate, I know. Here we go. So this list, this playlist has been curated by chat, and then Shadow Wolf in chat has made all of it into a playlist, which makes life so much fucking easier. So there's that. This is a series of it's like a marketing campaign. Cucking campaign. What? Oh no. What? No kissing till we married? Jesus. Oh. This is such a stupid series. Gay? I forgot about that. How long did this series of commercials go on for? Wonderful.
Chainsaws. Big problem, right?
Oh, okay. Hold on. That was good. I forgot about that shit. That was a good series. Can you imagine if that series of commercials went on for a really long time and you basically, like, you would eventually learn that was what happened? That is fucking wild. Do you prefer the packet or the long one? I've never had it. So maybe I'll start off with the small one and see, you know. See if they're any good.
You can only hold 2 chainsaws at a time, a configuration known as dual wield.
Sure.
Now, an enterprising person could probably manage to put a few more chainsaws on their body, maybe in a one-man band kind of configuration with foot saws and knee-activated saws and a harmonica saw and a head saw. I think maybe this one would have to be duct-taped on. And while we're at it, we probably should add some night vision goggles.
Tactical.
But the records for most chainsaws simultaneously brandished were all set by a different technique, which is juggling. Now, you might think that you can equip an arbitrary number of chainsaws by juggling them higher and higher into the air, a configuration known as infinity wield. But unfortunately, once you juggle them high enough, you have to throw them fast enough that they exceed the escape velocity of 11,000 kilometers per second. And then instead of coming back...
What the fuck is this? It's called Harder Drive, hard drives we didn't want or need. And so far we spent the first minute talking about chainsaws.
Back to you, they just go off into space.
Yeah.
But you know, we're not limited to throwing these things straight up. We could also throw them tangent to the Earth.
Sure.
Shy of the escape velocity. And this will create an orbit where they'll go around the Earth and come back and land in our other hand, which is very convenient for juggling. Here's a computer simulation of that. We can, of course, ignore air resistance, since chainsaws will cut through the air like butter.
Sure, of course.
A nice elliptical orbit. And of course, we could pack many chainsaws into this orbit at the same time. Let's see if we can catch it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah. So if you were standing on the bottom part of the planet.
These saws shooting by at 11,000 kilometers a second.
Sure, yeah.
And we catch and launch them back into orbit. The saws can be efficiently packed in this nice arrangement. And so really what's going to limit us is the volume of chainsaws that we can fit into this reachable area for juggling. So in this volume, we'll see about 55,390 saws per second. And since one orbit takes 335.6 hours, we'll have that long before we see a saw a second time. Thus, we're simultaneously brandishing 1.215 times 10 to the 12 saws. This is a configuration known as tera-wheeled. Now, I don't have any chainsaws. I live in the city where I have 2 trees, and if I cut those down, I'm done. So there'll be none of that. But we could consider juggling with something that's even more dangerous: data. Radio waves below 40 megahertz actually bounce off the upper atmosphere, the ionosphere. And they can do this multiple times. In principle, we could make it all the way around the world. We only need to talk about principles here because we're obviously not going to do this. But if you did, the circumference of the Earth is about 40,000 kilometers, which means that it'll take at least 150 milliseconds at the speed of light for radio waves to make their way around the Earth this way. And we can keep transmitting as the data makes its way around the world, which means that by the time we receive our first byte back, we'll have sent something like 750 kilobytes. Then we can receive that byte and send it again. If we have 750 kilobytes in flight all of the time, it's like we're storing that data in the radio waves. Like we're using the world as a hard drive.
What? I mean, I guess?
Instead of using radio waves, let's just use internet waves. It turns out that there are computers all around the internet that will send a message back to you if you send them a message. This message is called ICMP echo, to which they'll send an ICMP echo reply. And that message basically consists of a packet that says what your source IP address is and where you're sending it, the destination IP. And then there's a payload, some freeform data, which gets returned as is. So I send one of these packets to Australia with my return address on it and some data that I want to quote-unquote store. Then I can discard that data, and when it comes back, I can read it. And I could do this to a bunch of hosts around the internet, and in doing so, store a significant, let's see, amount of data in the internet. So let's...
Okay, so you're... Oh, wow, this is really stupid. Okay, yeah, no, you're cooking.
And not just that. This is the true story of hard drives we didn't want or need. It's called Harder Drive.
Yeah.
Harder drive.
I suppose you could.
Harder drive.
By the way, this ICMP echo thing is also known as a ping. So I put together some code to send out a lot of pings, and while I was doing that, I figured, why not ping the whole internet? And so I did. By internet here, I mean the IPv4 address space, which are addresses that you know and love, like A.B.C.D, each of which can go from 0 to 255. Those are 8 bits. So together we have 32 bits, or 4.2 billion addresses. Now, I don't care about IPv6. There's way too many addresses, and most of them aren't used. Plus, like, call me when you're at least version 7. Am I right? IPv4 is great, and 4.2 billion isn't that big of a number anymore. With my home internet, which is advertised as 1 gigabit per second.
That's a lie, though.
I should be able to finish in about 20 minutes. Or, a couple hours, or at most a week. Well, it turns out that sending this many pings was hell on my home network.
Yeah,
And not only does it end up dropping a lot of the pings, so it's useless, it renders the whole network completely unusable, which is definitely a no-no for the work-from-home lifestyle. And I was really only able to push this to about 1,000 pings per second, which is nothing. It could be that my ISP is throttling me. Or
probably.
there's NAT tables which aren't big enough to handle this many different addresses, or DDoS protection, or I'm just bad at this. Who knows? In any case, I ended up renting some time on some servers and some clusters so that I could finish the job, because the best excuse is that you just freaking did it. So I finished it up, and now we can look at the whole internet. So here is the internet. Let me zoom in a little bit. Actually, let me zoom in a lot. Here we have every IP address on the internet. You can see them at the bottom left. And the dot will be white if it responded to my ping, and black if not.
That's interesting.
And here I've arranged the IP addresses using a Hilbert curve, which is a sort of fractal space-filling curve that looks like this, which is a standard way to do this. This is not a video about the Hilbert curve. It's not even a video about pinging the internet. There's some somewhat interesting parts here. So this white block here always responded to my pings. That's because it's the loopback address 127 star.
Oh, yeah.
Which is basically my local computer. So it
Yeah.
always responds to that.
That's a huge
Up here
range.
are a bunch of reserved or multicast addresses, so it makes sense that none of those ever responded. Throughout the rest, we can see a lot of different characters, so I'll just give you a bit of a tour, depending on how this address space has been allocated. And each of these corresponds to a different, network, which is broken into sub-networks. This one has fairly fine-grained divisions. This reminds me of a farmland allocation in the United States.
Sure.
That's that square. Over here, we see a network that is very likely to respond to your ping, although there are some blackout regions. This area has all sorts of patterns in it. I actually really like this.
Oh, the little dots
Got
in the
some
middle of the
stuff you can
squares.
print on a tie.
Huh.
We've got some mazes. We got some Tetris pieces.
Oh.
Maybe even some letters here. We got a crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
And by the way, this way of mapping the internet is basically canonical, and it wouldn't be that hard to embed some kind of picture or message in here. Like, how cool would it be to embed a little QR code in this, right?
Yeah, you
It would
could.
be a little bit cool. Maybe a little embarrassing, too.
To do that, though, you would have to have control over, like, that brick of server. And, like... You would also then have to know how it was going to respond or not. Like, because QR codes are black or white. They don't have any gray, right? So either you would have to always respond or never respond to queries. God, Jesus fuck. I don't know how you would even...
Anyway, that's
That's ARG level
Probably
shit.
somewhere in here is your computer, too. And now I yearn to build our first virtual hard drive using what we've learned. This turns out to be no big deal.
Bingo.
In Unix, storage systems are abstracted as quote-unquote block devices.
Unix? I should have known this was a Unix guy. Because, I mean, like, we're 8 minutes into a 36-minute video, and the guy is talking nonsense. And he does this nonsense for fun. So, yeah, it checks out that he does Unix.
Which are quote-unquote just files. One way to make a block device would be to implement a kernel module, but then I'd be doing a lot of rebooting. NBDKit, which stands for No Big Deal Kit, is a library for creating network block devices in user space, which you could use for serious purposes or for silly purposes like today's. In order to implement a device, you just have to implement a function like read, which takes some address and a length and returns the data that's at that address, and write, which does the opposite. Once you make one of these virtual devices, you can mount it on the system, you can format it with some file system, and then you can store files on it. Now, the smallest block device that I can make any use of is 51,200 bytes. And to do that, I need to use the FAT12 file system, which is from the DOS era.
Yeah?
Used for like 5 1/4-inch floppy drives. So what we're going to do is make a device that has 100 512 byte blocks. Each of those blocks is going to be stored by a number of outstanding pings. And I'm going to use multiple pings per block for redundancy in case one of those pings doesn't come back. I don't want to lose my data.
Yeah.
Now, despite the fact that I already pinged the entire internet, I created the list of those hosts by hand. And part of the reason for this is I wanted to make sure I wasn't like hammering someone's cell phone on a metered connection. But also, I want hosts that are geographically diverse, because I don't want correlated failures. And I want them to be high reliability. I want them to respond to my 512 byte pings pretty much every time. But I also want them to be slow. And that's kind of a strange combination, right? Usually you want it to be fast and reliable, and here I want it to be slow and reliable. So this wasn't so hard. I searched for things like most popular websites in Madagascar, and I manually just checked them until I found ones that had the desired qualities.
Interesting.
Now, you can check the technical report for the implementation details if you want. It is a little tricky to do this.
This is code. If you program, you're just like this, and I don't know why, but I worry that this is me in a few years doing some weird whatever the fuck this shit is. I mean, like, yeah, this is legitimately like him making a worse hard drive by he's essentially using lag as a storage device, if I'm understanding this. Like, it's stored while it's not being stored on his computer.
It's because since I'm not actually storing any of the data, if someone wants to read from this drive, I have to wait until I receive a ping back before I can process their request. And writes have a similar challenge. The biggest problem here is the aforementioned throttling to about 1,000 pings a second. I barely got this working, but it would have been nice if I could send a few million pings per second instead of 1,000. I also built a UI for this thing, which we'll see in a second. So now what I want to do is stand up the drive, and I want to benchmark it to see how well it performs. In order to do that, I need to figure out what data I want to store on this drive. So I decided a fitting file, one that is a kind of improper hierarchy, would be RFC 792, a text file that describes the Internet Control Message Protocol, ICMP, echo, and echo reply that we're using. That thing is 30 kilobytes, so it just...
Yeah. Why?
Barely fits on the
Sure,
drive.
that. Like this, okay, this is a video where I'm very interested in what he's saying, but I have no idea how to explain, or even like, he's just doing his thing, man. Also, it says Rev. The only thing you can really say is why, and I think the reason is because it would be fun. It's a puzzle.
Here it is running that benchmark. The white blocks are healthy blocks. Those are blocks where we have the full target number of pings outstanding. If a block isn't white, that means we've lost a ping, and then it's in danger of failing. And that will happen all of the time. The crossed out blocks have not yet been written, so they don't have any data. The red dot indicates a block with an outstanding write, so you'll see that move around as the benchmark goes, and a green block the same for reading. At the bottom, you can see some of the hosts and statistics. I keep track of the statistics on the host so that I don't overload one host, and if it becomes less reliable or too fast, then I try to avoid using it. After the benchmark finishes, I guess there's a hiccup in the system or something, and I actually do lose some data. So a couple of these blocks die and don't come back. That will happen. This is not a reliable way of storing data.
Yeah, no, this is stupid.
But we can
but
look
it's
at
fun.
the file that I stored and read that protocol description. You'll see right here, there's an area that was lost. That's all zeros now. But the benchmark did work completely, so we can get some numbers. But I don't just want to evaluate these drives by their speed. Let's also consider the qualitative aspect. Qualitatively,
what was
this
the
is
last
a pretty
thing?
good harder drive. It does solve a problem that we don't have, which is to pretend we have a fast network but no memory in which to store data. It treats latency as a desirable quantity, contrary to the usual preference. And it was harder to make than I expected. The cost is not too bad. I have to have a computer, but I always have to have a computer. My home network costs about $80 a month for one quote-unquote gigabit.
Yeah,
And this is
I
about
love that
as
he
much
keeps
as I
saying
can
quote
store
unquote.
before the thing fails. So this ends up being about 0.15 cents per byte per month, which is not too bad. Longevity, however, is poor. The benchmark succeeds with 100% accuracy, like I mentioned, but the data is lost readily if you leave it running for a few minutes. And since we store the data externally using untrusted hosts, they can just send back whatever data they want and corrupt the drive. On the other hand, since we don't store any data locally, we could consider this non-volatile storage, in the sense that if we completely lose power, the data still exists as long as we can reboot in about 100 milliseconds.
Yeah, I was going to say,
to
like,
receive the pings
yeah, wouldn't the pings still have to go through? Because if they don't go through, then you don't get...
as they arrive, which is kind of unlikely.
I don't think that this is a thing that they could charge him more on. This is not the intended purpose of any of the things he's using. How did you even come up with this idea?
The speed is pretty slow. I got about 14 kilobytes a second reading and writing, which are basically the same operation. The power consumption for me is low, but the internet itself actually uses a lot of power. A typical undersea cable is excited with power on the order of tens of kilowatts, and they have repeaters every 100 kilometers or so, which is a lot of power. It's a lot of juice. If I was the only one using this, it would be very, very inefficient. Fortunately, many people are using the internet, and these pings are a tiny fraction of the bandwidth. And if I assume that my internet bill covers the marginal cost of the power for the internet, which makes sense, then it turns out to be about 5.8 microwatts per byte. In terms of harm to society, the drive is definitely harmful to my home network, Whether you can consider that a positive or negative to society is left as an exercise to the reader. At this scale, it's a trivial impact on the internet at large, but if we were to do this to store many terabytes of data, or if everyone were doing this, it would be pretty bad for the shared infrastructure. And we're kind of freeloading off the willingness of other hosts to respond to our pings, and so that would be somewhat antisocial. Speaking of antisocial, I'm sorry to remind you about Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, but this section concerns a hard drive made from Soviet blocks. And when I say that, of course I mean Tetris.
What?
Tetris is an inventory management survival horror game from the Soviet Union in 1984. It features 19 principal characters, which are these. And like all living things, they're made up of pixels or blocks, so we can make a block device out of these. The Tetris playfield is 10 squares wide.
What are you
20 squares
doing?
high. So the idea is to draw some pattern inside the playfield which will encode data as bits. And we can, of course, do this on
Yeah, I
multiple
knew
rows
that's
to
where this
include
is going,
several
and I
bytes.
get how he got here from this. So, like, he was looking at those blocks on the thing he did where he was checking the ping, and he was like, hey, what if I actually just use Tetris for this? I mean, I guess you could. I don't think you could store that much information in it. Also, reading and writing time would be fucking painful. Read time actually would probably be okay. Write time would be a pain.
Within the playfield. Now, one thing to notice is that we can't fill up an entire row that is all ones, because that clears a line in Tetris. It's also impossible to leave a row entirely empty unless there's nothing above it. So a row of all zeros is also impossible.
Sure.
A less obvious thing to note is parity. Because dropping a piece adds 4 blocks, and clearing a line removes 10 blocks, and these are both even, the board will always have an even number of blocks on it.
Oh, I never really thought about that, but I guess.
With odd parity on its own. So I only store 8 bits per row, and leave the first 2 columns for parity and support. That way we don't need to store any completely empty or completely full rows.
Yeah, and 8 is a good number for
Speaking of impossible, it's pretty hard to play and create arbitrary patterns, especially floating blocks. But that's the essence of harder drives. In order to make this easier, we want to get rid of one big obstacle, which is if you're getting pieces at random, it makes it really hard to plan out your strategy, even when you're
Also,
playing
we're
this game
about to hit an
normally.
ad break. I
Not getting
apologize.
a line for a long time can be
I
a
will
drag.
pause the game
So
and
the
get some
first step
water
is
then.
going to be to reverse engineer the random number generator of the game.
Oh, we can't
that we can
currently have an ad going. I'm gonna go get some water then. All right, I am back. Okay. This guy is one of the 2 prestige classes you can go into as a programmer. The other one is the socks, the programmer socks. I bet. Yeah, I get that. I had a friend who she grew up a boy, taught me a lot of shit about programming. In fact, was teaching me at one point how to do a neural net. Worked in the industry doing a bunch of stuff, and then she left the industry entirely. Apparently she did meet what's his name from Smash Mouth? Like they had like a thing at, I want to say she was working at Dell. She identified as a man at the time, but like the guy from Smash Mouth was like trying to get like all these women from Dell to like get up on stage and dance, and they're all like, we make more money than you, which is fuck yeah, honestly. Rip Smash Mouth guy.
Control what piece we get. Today I'm going to be working with Nintendo Tetris for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
I have not, Odd Merit. No idea who that is.
This game has a random number generator that's updated every single frame and determines the next piece at the moment that one lands. And that means that if I take more or less time as I drop a piece, I can influence what piece I get. The core of this routine is something called a linear feedback.
She wrote Doom for the NES. Oof. Jesus Christ.
Register. Equivalent C code for that thing looks like this. You have a 16-bit number, you shift it over, you pull out some of the bits and XOR them together, and then the result of that goes in the high order bit. This setup is really simple. It has a period of 32,767 before we see a repeated state, and that's pretty good. Incidentally, part of the reason we know this is that Solomon Golom, who studied these things and wrote the book on LFSRs, also wrote the book on polyominoes, which are a generalization of tetraominoes, and apparently that book inspired Tetris. So it's fitting that his work appears inside the source code of the Nintendo version. That said, it is possible to do better than this. It's known that you can have a period of 65,535 if you'd use different constants. This is one of several deficiencies I found in Tetris as I was reverse engineering it. And it would be easily fixed. Maybe one day I'll release a version 1.1 hot fix. Now let's look at how that random number generator is used to generate random pieces. Equivalent C code is on the right, but I want to show you this diagrammatically. The first thing we do is take the random state, add to it the number of pieces we've dropped so far, mod 8, and that gives us essentially a random dice roll from 0 to 7. Now this number is pretty random. Actually, in any given state, the maximum I would ever have to wait.
There he is. He's got some bald spots and he's got some dry skin. Not really sure how to help with that. But he's a good boy. And he came by for a cuddle. He just like, he's very quiet. When he comes in to like cuddle, he just like sits down on the floor next to me and looks at me until I notice he's there. He's a good boy. Do you have to stick your butt in my face? It's weird.
The number that I want is 98 frames.
I love the boy.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and like he could jump up in my lap, but it's like he wants to be invited into my lap. He wants to be picked up and put there. If I sit anywhere other than this chair, he doesn't care. He'll just climb in my lap. But when it's here, he has to be invited.
I'll get the number that I want.
Herman has very specific rules on how he works, and I get him as a cat. Like, he's very similar to me in a lot of ways. I love him. Very polite, very rough and tumble, kind of scruffy, but he's a good boy. And he takes care of his family as best he can. He's a good boy. Love him.
After a dozen frames or so. The histogram looks like this in case you're curious. So if that were the whole thing, this would be easy. In order to get a certain piece to come up, I just wait a certain number of frames until the next piece will be the one I want, and I'm done. But here's the rub. There are two cases where I roll a second die. First is if I roll a 7. Second is if I would drop the same piece that I just had. The goal is to make that less common. In each of these cases, I update the LFSR again, and then I use it in some other wacky formula to roll a 7-sided die. And this time, I don't care about duplicates. I just take the piece that I roll. Now, I can kind of understand why they wrote the code the way they did here, but it actually contains some serious problems. One of them is that in some conditions, it's impossible to get a duplicate piece. For example, on the third piece of the game, if I just saw a line, it's impossible to get another line, no matter how long you wait. Now, the reason for this is that although superficially...
I haven't tuned to your stream since the Smash reveals. Oh my god. I also started my dev career very recently. How do you feel about developing your game? It's kind of scary. I actually put out a video on Arcade today about my current thoughts about game development. Let me see if I can find that. I need to make sure I actually put that out anyway. RevScarecrow Arcade. For me, it's like the, hey, did you know you can, natural extension of what I've been trying to do, and it solves a problem that I've had for so fucking long. There's a link. I should post it in here, let me post it there as well. But that's the link to it, if you don't mind watching that. That actually does go over it, but I'm very excited. I don't know what I fear. You know? I think that people who don't like cats are also people who don't understand consent to some degree. I've heard that as a critique. And I don't think that's like 100%, but I do get where they're coming from. Dogs are pretty much down for whatever anytime. Cats are not. Cats, you have to get permission to do shit with them. And that, yeah.
So it
cats are just animals with boundaries. They do have boundaries. What about people who don't like dogs? I don't understand people who don't like dogs. Probably got attacked by one or were scared of being attacked by one at some point. Also, random shout. You know that, God, what was that? There was a type of tiger or wolf. It's like a striped wolf or something. It went extinct, and we have footage of it, right? Of the last one that survived. It's like a black and white film. Thalicane? Is that the name of the guy? The Tasmanian tiger? Let me see if I can find it. I think I read this the other day. Here it is. The Guardian put out a thing the other day. How a putrid find in a museum cupboard could be the key to bringing back the Tasmanian tiger. They basically just someone preserved the soft tissues of the specimen, which researchers dubbed head in a bucket, contains preserved long RNA molecules, which are crucial to reconstructing the I'm just going to call it the Tasmanian tiger genome. Basically, they can, because they have some RNA from it, they might be able to bring them back. The project to bring it back is driven by Colossal, a Texas-based biotechnology, de-extinction, and species preservation company that is aiming to recreate the woolly mammoth and the dodo using genetic engineering techniques. Like Jurassic Park, but they're fellas. Like, I don't know. We always hear all of this shitty news and sad shit. There's so much sad news out in the world. But like, we are very, very close to being able to solve, you know, plastic problems, or, you know, get rid of the plastic sooner than it would have decayed, which means that if we combine that with, you know, actual reasonable, you know, recycling and maybe not using plastic as much, we can, you know, get rid of that. There have been huge advancements in possibly curing shit like diabetes. Nobel Prizes were won. And then now they're going to try and bring back shit that went extinct because we fucked up. Because that's one of the saddest things, is like the dodo is something that you just like, we ate until we got rid of it. You know, we brought a thing back. Like, we can bring it back though. And you know what's exciting about that? I'm going to eat a fucking dodo. You might be like, hey, wait a minute. That was the problem last time. People being excited to eat the thing to the point that it doesn't exist anymore. I get it, but we could fucking eat a dodo, man. You know what's gonna be fucking wild? If we eat the dodo and it sucks. What if dodo just tastes really shit? Like pigeon. Like really bad quality chicken meat, right? Like, that would be fucking hilarious. Because it's just like, why did we make these things go extinct if they don't taste good? Anyway.
You just need to get lucky. Consecutive dice rolls are actually really correlated. So if we go back to this guy, who, by the way, knew about this problem. This red region here is the part of the shift register that's used to produce the output value. And we can see that in 2 consecutive states, 2 of the bits are going to be exactly the same. So there's not that many combinations of 2 consecutive dice rolls. This is also a fixable problem, but we got to work with the game we got. So this adds a constraint for us, which is that as we form a plan to drop pieces...
I have no idea what he's talking about. The big issue with dodos was rats wanting to eat their eggs. Maybe they're tasty. When are you going to decide if you will make an extension? It seems like we should. I'm looking at the number of people. Like, 14 people have said that there should be an extension. So I'm doing a game jam, but 14 contestants in the game jam are like, I don't fucking have time to finish the game. And a lot of people are going to drop out. And I would rather you guys finish the game than it be done on time. Basically, I just want to have like a random thing that forces you to start doing the thing. Right? Like, I don't want to stress y'all out. So I'm totally fine giving people more time. As long as it, you know, we finish it at some point. Yeah, I'll definitely change the date, but I'm asking how long they need, because, like, I want people to be able to try to be expressive and creative. Video games are my current, like, thing that I'm about, like I said in the arcade. But, like, you know, I want to be able to share that experience and that joy of being able to find an art form that I like so much. I don't want it to be a bad thing for anyone. So I would rather wait a week or 2 than get it on time. So, one person says they're halfway done. Their username is truncated because I'm on, okay.
To make our pattern. We really ought to avoid duplicates completely so that we don't get ourselves stuck. Other than that, because we can predict the value of the random number generator, we can ensure that we get the piece that we want at just
That's
the
you?
right time.
Okay. That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
Those pieces
it just says
O. Pattern to encode the information we want.
And then it's got a picture of Typhlosion. Which, by the way, didn't we find out that the Typhlosion thing was, like, fake? Like, I heard that it was fake, but I don't know if that's true, because sometimes chat tells me some random shit. Like, they told me that, like, Trump got like his ear cut with the fucking teleprompter or something. It's like absolutely not. It's not fake, it's just jankily translated. Yeah, the machine translation, some things sounded much worse than they were. It's AI translated. Yeah, it had some weird phrasings. It didn't seem like a great translation, but I mean, like, I don't know how to read it, so. It's also written at folklore, and also, like, I don't know. Basically, as long as it's not a kid, it becomes significantly less weird, and we can just go, this is a parable and not a real thing. It's still a little bit, being told the placeholder music they used was real files, so I don't know. Chances are it said Maiden or something. Yeah, I mean, it's still not great. It's kind of still fairly rapey, but, you know, it's... They meant young, unmarried girl. She could have been like 25. I mean, back in the day, like, you know, Snow White was 7 in the original story. And they aged her up to make it less creepy when Disney made it. And now she's now like, what, 14 or 15? Just to make it not weird. Because it would have been weird if she was like 7. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, look. Is Japanese folklore any more or less fucked up than, like, Western stuff? Like, Hansel and Gretel? I mean, yeah, we don't have guy that shows you his asshole as one of our canon monsters that goes around doing shit. We have other stuff. That one was made up. I hate how... Yeah. Nordic folklore, like, whatever the fuck was going on with Loki. Let me just say that. Didn't Loki turn himself into a horse so he could get fucked by his brother or something weird?
Modular way.
Yeah, I mean, the Grimm fairy tales are also not very... I mean, there's the original story as it was passed around, but there's no real canon original. The closest we do have is, you know, the first written down canonized version, which would be the Brothers Grimm. I had to do a book report on this really bad artist that came through town, and her whole thing was about the Grimm fairy tales and their secret dark past, and it's just like, you're stupid.
Do is initialize the board to a known position, and then for each byte, I'll find a sequence of moves that puts that byte on the board, given the known position, and then puts it back in the known position. The very beginning of the game looks like this. I always play these same sequence of moves, which clears the board and then places that S shape in the leftmost column. Each byte's plan will only be able to assume that S is there, nothing else about the board. You'll see a little hesitation on the pieces sometimes. That's it deliberately waiting so that we get the drop on the right frame, and thus get the right random next piece. We just wrote a couple zeros to show how this next part doesn't depend on any support below it, and the board is now back in that standard position. Next, we're going to write the byte 2E, which in binary is 00101110. Sometimes when we reach a very long drought with the RNG, which can be up to 98 frames.
Jesus.
We actually pause the game in order to slow it down even more, which is annoying. Now the bits are in their correct place, but we need to clear the garbage that's above it and put it back in standard position. And then we can just repeat that process over and over again to write bytes into the playfield. Of course, one Tetris game storing 8 bytes is not enough for a hard drive. So we can do this on many Tetris boards simultaneously. Here's a demo of that. I'm highlighting only the parts that encode the data, or here are some letters and drawings.
Jesus.
By the way, I found the solutions for each byte by a computer search. It's not that hard to find a solution, but finding a small solution takes a lot of time, at least with my algorithm. I plotted the length of the best solution for each byte, in this graphic, where the first row is the byte 0, then 1, and so on. And lighter cells use more moves. There are some symmetries and patterns visible, but I was somewhat disappointed not to see the familiar Triforce pattern appear here, as it has so many times before. It might
I
be
like
that
the circle.
solutions are not quite optimal, but they're probably
Some of
close.
these are really cool. This one's a circle. I like that one. This one's like checkerboard. Oh, you got letters. Hard drive something.
Alternatively, it could simply be that this is the exception that proves the high rule. But this is also not even close to enough Tetris games to store a file that's of interest. And here the most beautiful choice of file to store is the Tetris ROM file itself, which is 49 kilobytes. So I need 8,640 NES emulators, which is not really that big of a deal, except for trying to fit them all on this screen so that I can visualize this thing. And here's that thing running the benchmark, which is writing tetris.nes onto those 8,640 emulators.
Coding Tetris with Tetris.
That takes several hours to finish, but it does work. It's actually very reliable. Each one of these is a real Tetris game, although it's being rendered with individual pixels. To read the data out, we just inspect the memory of the emulator, which has the Tetris playfield at a particular place in memory, so that's easy and fast. After the benchmark finishes, with the file still written to the drive, I can load up an NES emulator and load the Tetris game and play it off that drive as it's being stored in the 8,600 other emulators. So here I am doing that. And ironically, I have a really long drought with no eye shapes here, so I only have 100 points. But you can see I'm gearing up to score some sweet, high-scoring Tetrises. Let's see how it stacks up. Looking at the quality...
I mean, yeah, that...
qualitative aspect again. This is another good harder drive. It solves a problem we don't have, which is to make a hard drive, aka a block device, with a triple entendre, the Soviet block. Implementing it meant solving several decent computational problems, which I enjoyed. And it's satisfying to watch it go.
It works.
The cost is not too bad, mainly because computers are really cheap. Each Nintendo emulator takes 1.6 megabytes of RAM, which could definitely be...
It is very illegal, though, because Nintendo doesn't like it. Because doesn't Nintendo have an official statement on their website on emulation? Where is it? Here we go. Is it okay to copy or download older titles that are no longer sold? No. The current availability of games in stores is irrelevant to its copyright status. Copyrights do not enter the public domain. Downloading ROMs from direct download sites, linking sites, or other illegal sources, even when you own a copy of the game, is not allowed under the Copyright Act. This. Jesus, man. It's illegal if you don't own it. Well, no, it's also illegal apparently if you make your own backup copy of it, according to Nintendo. Which is all it's going to take on whether or not they sue you or not. So,
but that's what
anyway, the illegality of this. Again, another time to mention that, whilst they're correct, it is illegal. Fuck that.
About 5,200 bytes per
what's
gigabyte.
Legal is not always what's right,
costs, that's
and vice versa.
0.084 cents per byte. The longevity here is normal. The data doesn't rot or corrupt over time.
That's
but
true.
If you turn the computer off, everything is lost.
Yeah.
On the positive side, because everything is stored locally, bandits do not have any access to the data to read it or tamper with it. The speed is pretty bad. We write the...
It's not actually illegal in the United States. Nintendo is... Oh, that's interesting. That they've actually... I mean, it's probably in their best interest to say it's illegal on their website. I mean, like, how many people have read that, gotten scared off from doing any emulation of some degree or whatever? You can say shit like that, and, like, with current precedent, I think they'd probably be right. I don't agree with them. I don't agree with Nintendo at all. Well, I agree that they're right insofar as that it is illegal, but like I don't agree with that assessment. I don't think that it should be. You know, they do enforce it. They do actually go after people quite often and sue them. They do it less often than you would expect. I think we hear about it all the time, but we fucking hell.
Improved, but that's what we got.
Yeah.
And so I can store about 5,200 bytes per gigabyte of the computer's RAM. At today's costs, that's about 0.084 cents per byte. The longevity here is normal. The data doesn't rot or corrupt over time.
If you stop selling Karla Marx, I have a backup. That's illegal and morally wrong, I guess.
Lost. On the positive side, because everything is stored locally, bandits do not have any access to the data.
There's a reason it's fucking free on itch. Like, that game did not matter as much to me. That was like, how do I do these things? And I figured it out. Feels good. It's only illegal if you make a Switch release. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever release a game onto a Nintendo platform. I don't like the way that Nintendo treats people. And, you know, it's weird, you know? Just release it on Steam Deck. I mean, it's the same kind of shit. And you could jailbreak your Switch if you want.
To read it or tamper with it.
About Sony and Xbox?
Fast. We write the 50-byte Tetris ROM in 3 hours and 18 minutes.
I would like to put it on phones.
2.57 bytes per second. Reading is pretty fast, though, because that just comes right out of the Nintendo's memory. Power usage is similarly reasonable. A gigabyte of RAM is about 375 milliwatts, so this works out to 72 microwatts per byte. We could compare this to the same thing running on a real Nintendo Entertainment System, which could store 1 byte in about 1.25 watts. The harm to society depends on whether we do this on a computer in that 375 milliwatts, so this works out to 72 microwatts per byte. We could compare this to the same thing running on a real Nintendo Entertainment System, which could store 1 byte.
72 microwatts versus 1.25 watts. I see. So that is, I mean, significantly worse. Okay.
And about 1.25 watts. The harm to society depends on whether we do this on a computer in emulation, in which case there's no harm, or by scooping...
Well, I'm not... Putting Karla Marx on phones is less important to me than trying to figure out how to port... I think most people play games on their computer or on their phones. I think those are like the two most popular ones. Google App Store is wretched, though. I mean, if I put it on itch, right? Then they can install it through there. Yeah, we'll just put it on itch, because then I don't have to worry about Google App Store or anything like that. We got an ad break, so we're just going to take a minute on this video. But, yeah. Yeah, you could put an APAC on itch. I got, My Industry, like that. Well, the thing is, what I talked about in today's arcade, which I would recommend you guys watch, but like, it's me talking about a long time problem that I've had involving canvases and the intimidation factor of like a canvas versus a video game. People are so willing to critique a video game and say it's bad or it's, you know, graphics are bad or whatever. Like they'll have comments, even like brain dead comments, like, oh, this has DI in it or whatever. Like, people are having visceral reactions to video games existing, but they don't do that with canvases. You know what I mean? How many people are willing to install from unknown sources? So then if you... I'll have to hear what you say about that. I mean, that's the general premise of the video, is that I think that music and video games are the peak art forms that are available right now. And I am not good enough to express myself through music yet. But video games, that I can figure out. Because I've done that with Town of Nowhere, and I've done that with March of the Mice.
Up thousands of classic consoles and cartridges on the secondary market. In this case, it would be harmful. Many people still like to use these consoles for their intended purpose, and hoarding is unethical. Now, speaking of...
Wait, but piracy is unethical. I love that he doesn't entertain that as even an idea because it's bullshit. I'm not concerned about the money that they make. I'm concerned about who fucking actually consumes it. You know? I want people to interact with my work without being afraid of it.
Of using things for their intended purpose. I'm sorry to remind you of
like
the
thinking that they're
pandemic still
stupid,
killing thousands of people every day. But this next section concerns a hard drive made of used COVID-19 tests.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Q is a bougie COVID-19 test from 2021. The test consists of a reusable reader, which costs $200, and a single-use cartridge, which is $65 each. You insert a nasal swab, it runs its little lab on its hip. It's actually quite cool, notwithstanding the eye-popping cost. My workplace lets us test regularly for free. So I started collecting the used cartridges over the course of several months and soliciting them from my friends as well. Now,
the biohazard possible here.
Different colors of gray could, in principle...
I mean, they're expensive. They're $65 per test. I think you can get like a 4-pack of tests for like $20. I mean, they're not as cool looking as this, but they work. And honestly, I'd rather test more than test less, but it looks cooler.
Encode data, but these sticks get in the way, and it's just not satisfying.
Can you take out the...
We could admire the cartridges on the dry salt bed for eternity, but they're actually quite ingenious and deserve to be disassembled. I recommend only doing this to negative tests. When you stick the nose swab in, it of course delivers the snotty sample, but the insertion also mechanically moves these thorns and rips open these foil ampules which contain reagents. The assay is described as nucleotide amplification, which suggests something like PCR. But it doesn't significantly change temperature during a test, so it's probably not literally PCR. I think it's probably LAMP. After it's amplified, I think it flows through this channel here so that they can detect the result. And finally into this...
COVID seems to be back in a big way. I hope you're wrong. In my local area, the number of infections is fairly low, but... I still got my shot the other day.
Sponge for safekeeping. If you pull off all the chemistry pieces, though...
Like, I would still be wearing a mask if I was living in Austin. Because that city has way too many fucking idiots running around without a mask on when they are absolutely sick. But here, people, if they're not feeling well or if they're infirm, they'll wear a mask. And it's like, thank you?
You'll find that there's a tiny 8-pin microchip on board. And if you have really good eyesight, you can read that it says ST24C04WP, which is a serial EEPROM. This is a programmable read-only memory, so it's read-only but also writable. It's probably used by the system to store calibration data and maybe expiration date or something. After soldering tiny wires onto these tiny pins and writing a driver, I had hoped to see some secret message congratulating me on my steady hands, beginning an alternative reality game whose prize was the inheritance of an eccentric billionaire. I probably wouldn't have time for that anyway. There doesn't seem to be anything actually interesting in the ROM, but that doesn't mean we can't put something of our own.
I mean, like, I've done that forever. Same. Like, if I'm sick, I'm going to wear a mask so that way I don't get other people sick. If everyone did that, we might... And there's times where you do actually have to get out. Like, you do actually have to go and get, I don't know, cold medicine. And you can't get it another way. I think that like where you live has a lot to do whether or not it makes sense to continue masking. The town I live in now is so small that I think I've met everyone in town at this point. So like, but compare that to like Austin, and there was an international airport there.
Interesting on the ROM. Now, unfortunately, this thing only stores 512 bytes. So in order to make a hard drive that can store something interesting, we're going to need a lot of them. And then we're going to need to hook them up somehow. I made a circuit board to hook these cartridges together. The EPROMs are I2C devices, so they could in principle be on the same bus. But unfortunately, they're all the same, and so they have the same address.
Yeah.
This means that I actually need to use bus switches.
Austin is barely an international airport? Jesus, are you... But, I don't know, I haven't seen that many. It's not that much smaller than JFK, right? How big is Austin Bergstrom? Austin Bergstrom Airport. Wikipedia. It has 2 runways and 3 helipads, and it covers 4,242 acres. And then JFK International Airport. The airport, which covers 5,200 acres, is the largest in the New York area. How many runways do you have? The 4 runways, and is primarily accessible by car, bus, or shuttle. So JFK is twice as big as Austin Bergstrom. So I guess you're right.
And disconnect them.
I mean, it's wild that there's only 4 runways at JFK. That is actually crazy. Like, that really just shows how good they are at flight control shit. The Denver airport's quite large as well. Yeah, I mean, and then you compare that to, like, what's the biggest airport in Maine? Because I don't want to say which one we came in. I mean, I think people could probably figure out which one we came in through. Biggest airport in the world is in Saudi Arabia, in Dammam. King Fahd International Airport in Dammam. It covers 776 square miles. And it's so big that it's larger than the neighboring country of Bahrain. What the fuck? Portland International Jetport. Okay. Is 726 acres of land compared to Austin Bergstrom's 4,200 something. And it has how many runways? It has 1 runway. So, I mean, like, listen, that's kind of what I'm getting at. That's the international airport here in Maine, and it's one of the bigger ones in the area. And it has 1 fucking
bus. Those switches are indexed by a demultiplexer, which takes 3 address bits and selects one of the 8 Q cartridges on a board. Each cartridge has this custom mount, which is a little bit tricky to design. The card edge is supposed to slide into some spring-mounted connector, but I wanted to solder them directly. So I made some fine castellated edges. Unwisely, I decided to add decorative LEDs, which would show which Q cartridge was activated at any given time. This accounts for most of the complexity of the circuit board. Finally, I made a whole bunch of these boards which are all identical, but one of them has an additional section populated. This connects to the Raspberry Pi and so on. This is a nice design because I have to order these things in quantity. So all of them have this vestigial part that's only used one time. Assembling the boards is labor intensive, but not that hard. The only tricky thing is these custom connectors. So I 3D printed a jig to hold the Q cartridge at a 90-degree angle while I was soldering, which helped a lot. Then I made some custom enclosures and wired them all together.
Bangor has a bigger airport than that? How big is Bangor's airport? Bangor International? Yeah, all right. Bangor International Airport is... Ba-ba-ba-ba. One runway, 2,079 acres. So still about half the size of Austin Bergstrom, which is not even that big of an airport, apparently.
And hours later, on the eve of the Sigbovic deadline, this happened. Well, this is a reenactment.
Also, the soldering iron isn't on, which is funny.
But it did die. I completely fried the Raspberry Pi. Fortunately, I had a backup. And then I did it again.
Stop that! Holy shit, dude, what? Like, yeah, if you put a lot of fucking heat into it, it's gonna blow it. Stop. It's been forever since I've done anything. Bangor, Maine, that's where Ray got busted for soliciting prostitution. The only Ray I can think of is Ray Gun. I'm very confused.
This caused me to realize it was not simply some kind of fluke. Who would have guessed that this janky ceiling outlet would have been wired incorrectly?
Oh.
Anyway, I used up my last 2 Raspberry Pis.
Ha! Jesus, man!
And it's impossible to get more right now.
Supply chain.
2 years ago. Okay, that's why it's hard. Cool.
So unfortunately, we're unable to benchmark this device, but we can still evaluate it. I would say that this is a decent hardware drive. It definitely solves a problem we don't have, which is that I want to keep around all these used COVID-19 tests. It was also a large effort, although most of it was just about soldering really small stuff, or repeating the same action over and over and over again for hours. On the other hand, EEPROMs fundamentally store data, and so it's not that weird to use.
This is the first video in the list. We've been watching it for over an hour.
Be described as very silly, given that a single 1 megabyte NAND flash chip costs about 30 cents. On the other hand, mucho demerits because it doesn't work, at least as a hard drive. But on the other hand, it does work as a smoke machine. The cost is significant.
Yeah.
Here's the bill of materials per board. The main thing is the 8 COVID tests, which cost $65 each, but there are a number of other components, including the custom PCB, totaling about $531 per board. This doesn't even count the hour or more to assemble each board. For a system large enough to store
10K ohm resistors. It's not divisible by 8. That's really weird. You're still live? How long has it been? I've been live for about 5 hours. I start my streams at about 11, give or take. I was so bored during COVID that I built my own guitar amp from scratch. Yeah, a lot of people did like creative shit during COVID. That was not me. I survived it by streaming.
The SARS-CoV-2 genome. It cost $6,936. All told, it costs a little under 13 cents per byte. This is the only drive we considered where data is retained when it's powered off. So that's great. The datasheet for the EEPROM rates it at 200 years of data retention, which at this point is probably going to outlast human civilization. Due to explosion, the speed of this drive is currently unknown.
Yeah, lots of work and lots of depression during COVID. A lot of like just fear and confusion during COVID. I worked from home, obviously, and it was really nice for me. Like that's the thing about being a streamer, is that like I don't need I basically just need power and an internet connection. And then some sort of device that hooks the internet and I can stream. I learned that Russians built an Emperor's Children army. What does that sentence mean? What kind of weird shit's going down in the Ukraine right now? Like, I know that there's like the Kornite drone. Like they are like critical misread. Yeah. The latest, I learned Russian and built an Emperor's Children army. That makes so much more sense. Yes. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. So there's one of the 4 chaos gods is named Korn. Korn drone. They're called the Korn group. Not gonna show any like hurt people or anything, but like that symbol up there, right here. Symbol of corn. It's literally, they're literally doing Warhammer memes during this war. There's a couple, like, I know Russians are, like, putting a lot of, like, orc glyphs on their vehicles because there's apparently some sort of, like, camaraderie with orcs as, I don't know what the fuck that is. It's really weird, yeah. The Kornite drone group is the one that I was just referencing. And you'll see, if you watch any drone footage, which I don't because I don't want to see people die, but if you see it, they are the ones pushing out the propaganda for Ukraine's drone stuff. People are using orcs as a slur against Russians. Yeah, it's not a good thing to call someone. You know what we need to watch at some point? Isn't a drone kind of cowardly for Korn? I mean, Korn prefers, like, straightforward, like, rule of the beast, blood for blood, like, the honorable person wins, the strong person wins. It doesn't seem very, yeah. But, I mean, also, fucking shit, I would not be running up to tanks.
The power consumption is excellent.
Korn
The Raspberry Pi,
prefers,
when it's working,
he prefers melee. There are Kornites that do snipe, despite what the developers of Space Marine 2 said. There are Kornite berserkers who are snipers, and they see it as a way to confirm more kills than they could otherwise, or something like that. And then they go and actually grab the skulls later. Yeah, I mean, Russia's... Don't blame the Russian people for what the Russian government does. And if you do, remember that you are complicit for everything America does if you're an American, under the same logic.
it uses less than 3 watts. And the incremental cost of adding a byte comes mostly from
Civilians are not their governments.
Which comes out to about 19 nanowatts per byte. We find that this drive is actually
They don't even
beneficial
necessarily
to
agree
society.
with shit.
For one thing, it's made from trash. Testing helps prevent the spread of disease and saves lives. And finally, because the tests contain captured body fluids, this brings a much-needed human element to computing. Speaking of captured body fluids, get out your barf bag because it's time for another round of Things Tom Hates. The name of this stock app, Think or Swim. It's of course a play on the idiom to sink or swim, meaning metaphorically to toss someone into deep water to survive by their own efforts or else drown.
Is it based or cursed that I have a Slanesh tattoo? I don't think I would get a Warhammer tattoo, but I have seen some really banger ones.
For an app that lets consumers trade derivatives, but the obvious problem here is that if it's think or swim, then are we now asking the subject to survive by their own efforts, i.e. swim, or else think? Huh? Or is it they must think carefully about their trades or else they will survive? What? 2. Poison ivy. There's just no point to this plan. 3. Cryptocurrencies.
What the fuck is he talking about? This is like stream of consciousness or stream of conscious thought done by someone who's very smart and uses it for weird shit.
I have no objection to cryptography and finance. I actually love cryptography. I read this whole damn book in college. But the current scene is just vomitous. Cryptocurrency significantly harms the planet while taking advantage of people's technical and financial illiteracy. Now, it's hard to avoid noticing the common prefix of blockchain and block device, so a head-to-head comparison might be instructive. Let's look at Bitcoin, the most popular cryptocurrency. It's append-only by design, but it does store data, namely the transactions. For comparison's sake, we'll consider usage where the head of the blockchain contains the full
what are you
data.
doing now?
A write is accomplished by mining a new block, and a read is accomplished by reading the head of the chain. For Bitcoin, the block size is just 1 megabyte, and the network automatically adjusts to mine 1 block every 10 minutes. I did not actually implement this, both because of the gag reflex and because I don't have that kind of money. Despite hating it, I must admit that Bitcoin makes a pretty good harder drive. It solves a problem we don't have, which is to imagine a world where we can't find a few trustworthy parties, the majority of whom are acting in good faith. The solution is elegant in the small, putting aside its obvious fatal flaws, and comically absurd when taken to its logical conclusion. It's impressively wasteful, and it gets more wasteful automatically. In short, it would make a solid Sig-Bovic paper. The only problem is that people are using it in seriousness and all of the social problems that entails.
Yeah.
Power is, of course, catastrophically high. It uses 15.74 kilowatts to store 1.
Yeah, I already know about proof of stake, but please do go ahead and fix this currently existing problem. Yeah, proof of stake is fine, but I don't know of a single, like, cryptocurrency that is using proof of stake and it actually works. Like, there have been some that I thought about. It still requires to do transactions, yeah, like, but you don't have to mine as much with proof of stake. But, like, I don't know of anyone who actually has used proof of stake as a thing, so he's right to call it out. Like, it functionally does not exist. There's a bunch of different blockchain currencies that are ready to flip that switch any day now, guys. We'll do it, you know?
Byte. Just the act of mining uses almost 1/3% of the entire world's energy consumption. And all this accomplishes is proving that you wasted energy so that you don't need to trust a bank or a set of banks. The longevity is very good. Nominally, the data can't even be erased. Of course, the data are stored by adversarial bandits themselves, and if a colluding majority decide to do so, they can just change the data to anything they want.
Right.
The cost is pretty high, especially for the power. Mining a single block yields about $342,000 in March 2022, so if we assume that's profitable, that's a maximum of 34.2 cents per byte. The drive is pretty slow at 1 megabyte every 10 minutes.
Wait, does that imply that the COVID tests are more expensive per byte? Is that what he just said? 34.2 cents per byte versus 12.96. And that was a bad fucking deal. Holy shit.
4.2 cents per byte.
He's talking about, like, he could potentially make a hard drive using the blockchain or using blockchain technology, but it's twice as expensive as the $64 COVID test for the same storage space, which is not good.
Drive is pretty slow at 1
Nerd tattoos are only cringe if you're that guy who gets Mario tattoos because retro is in style. Yeah, I feel it.
megabyte every 10 minutes, but it is at least faster than the hard drive made out of Tetris emulators. So score 1 point there. This is approximately as fast as one 14.4 kilobit modem. The harm to society is significant. Aside from the catastrophic waste of resources, the primary use case is speculation on the currency itself or on dubious certificates of authenticity for JPEGs. As a slow,
Questionable
non-atomic,
JP.
yet
I mean, yeah, it is DRM, isn't it?
irrevocable payment mechanism, cryptocurrency is best suited for extortion.
Educate me. I love this.
Of transactions like ransomware. Okay, all right. Thank you for indulging my tirade. We're mostly here to have fun today. But remember that technology has a large impact on society, and we as technologists have a large influence over that. Speaking of fun, you might ask, Tom, that looks like a lot of hard work. Why go through all that trouble? To that I say, we do these things not because they are hard, but because they are harder drives.
Harder drive.
I'm not surprised to find out that he's a PhD.
Harder drive.
Interesting video.
野球しようぜ。
オッケー。
行こう行こう。お前ら今日はやったよ。
任しとけ。
姿三四郎。
What is this from? I remember this. It's for some video game, I think? Dead. Sega.
三四郎。
That was what it
音速ハリネズミソニックのレースゲームソニック R
Speaking in Japanese French subtitles on an English stream. Jesus Christ, there's so many of these. He's got lore. Tom 7 is literally Tom last name 7, which itself is hilarious. I did not catch that. What the fuck? He got his own dedicated game near the end of the lifespan. That's fun. That feels very Pepsi Man energy. Jesus, how many of these are there? Someone was like, I gotta show Rev all of the weird Japanese ads. He's also a character in the Project X Zone. No idea what that is. God, I remember this shit. What? A weird crossover game for the 3DS? I love that they're doing like little bits based on the games, and it's always him just judo throwing people, like killing children and zombies. It's fucking good. And it's the same throw every time, too. I think he was a Carmen Rider. Cool. He might be who Willpowers is. Nah. Jesus fuck, how many of these are there? Three more, counting this one. Is this a dating game? Judo throw her. What the fuck?
あとはドリームキャストの発売を待つばかりだ。
It was a mech game instead.
しろセガサタンしろセガサタンしろ
瀬形三四郎は君たちの心に真剣遊戯セガサターン。
いよいよドリームキャスト
Wait, is this the same thing? Oh. It repeats? Oh, okay. That's just like a higher quality version.
タピオカの次に何が流行るか知ってる？チーズティー、バナナジュース。正解は
セガだよ。
え？
セガだよ。
What?
ラグビーの次に流行るのってさ、
セガだよ。
5G の次ってさ、
セガだよ。
令和の次は
セガだよ。
じゃあセガの次は
セガだよ。
セガって何？あなたは誰？
セガシロセガシロセガシロを今こそあなたに知ってほしい。60周年のセガ。
セガシロー、それスイッチ？
セガだよ。
それサングラス？
セガだよ。
The Game Gear, dude. Someone had the Game Gear when we went on a school trip to Schlitterbahn. And I was like, man, that shit's so fucking cool.
リュック？
セガだよ。
いつもそれ何羽織ってるの？
セガシロ
父さん。
来い音セガを極めろ
How long did the battery last? He played it for some of the ride.
セガなんて時代遅れだ誰だ破綻しろ破綻しろセガ破綻しろ
Wait, what? It's a pun. Hanta Shiro means go bankrupt. Destroy Sega, but he's saying go oh, okay. Cool. Shiro's secret now on our website. This actor Sega Shiro is the What you mean?
シローの秘密ウェブサイトで公開中。60周年のセガ。父さん、セガは僕が守る。
セガ破綻しろ
セガは僕が守る。
What do you want to bet it's like his dad? That would be fucking great. Yeah, that throw. I recognize that move. This goes way harder than it should.
破綻しろ
セガは僕が守る。
成長したな
父さん。
お前の成長を確かめたかった今のお前ならセガを守っていける
父さん。
もう俺のことは忘れるんだ
父さん。
俺はかつてのセガの象徴だ
父さん。
セガは今やゲームだけではなく総合的なエンターテインメントコンテンツ事業を行っている
父さん。
これからお前が新しいセガを守っていくんだ
The old TV ones were really popular in Japan. This reminds me of God, what was the name of that one we were watching this one and it was like they had like a puppet and a guy and it was British cartoons and then they brought back a character for it was like a teddy bear or something. We watched this. But like that's cool.
俺を超えていけ
父さん。
俺を投げ飛ばせ
父さん。
さあやるんだ
父さん。うわりゃ父さん。
セガは任せた
父さん。決意を新たに60周年のセガ。
I liked his pants. I had a pro tip: never go looking for Mr. Blobby videos. Yeah. I used to have what was this? Roblox? Or it wasn't Roblox. What was this called? I had this and I had the Star Wars one, and we could never get it to work because it gated you doing your own shit behind like doing their shit. Technics, yeah. We had the big set and then we had a little set. I'm actually surprised that that works. Oh. Yeah, okay. I thought I was hearing that outside. Don't you really only have to hit the backside? Yeah, I would hit the backside right near the rudder because you just need to get a little bit of water going in it. So is this channel he makes increasingly stupid inventions to make sure it does the job? Because I think I've seen this guy's shit before. It was for like a bridge or like a climbing thing or something. After you learned how to do it, you could make your own stuff. Yeah, but it wouldn't let me just do that, and that's where we got upset. I ended up making a car, like a remote-controlled car with it, and that's about it. It worked by having basically tank controls, where one motor would turn it. It had two wheels that had no power whatsoever, and then it had power on one side, on the left side, on the, I think it was like, forget if I did rear wheel power or the other way around. But you could, if you held down the right button, it would just turn the right wheel. And so it would turn to the right. But if you press the left one, then it would turn to the left. But if you press both of them at the same time, it would go forward. Didn't have a way to go in reverse. I wasn't clever enough to figure out how to do that. And I was very limited based on what it would actually allow me to program it to do. But I remember making that, and I would walk it around the house and drive it. What's the fan for? Seems a little cheaty. Ah. Right. Yeah, that probably works. Really? There you go. Yeah, you can call it there. Does that one even float? Okay. Yeah, I guess it had an air pocket under the, That's wild that they actually float, too. This thing seems like it's gonna work on most shit. Because, yeah, a whirlpool would work. Why not? It's kind of wild that the fan can chew them up, too. Hey, you remember, what was it, Action Park? Didn't they have... Wasn't Action Park the one with the water rapids that were controlled by fans like this? But, like, they also had, like... If you touch the water, you might get electrocuted in addition to getting turned into the fan. So this is actually a pretty good act. Like, this is a good way of, not the wave machine. No, this was for the inner tube ride. That would sometimes suck you down and fucking kill you. Anyway, this is what happened in Action Park, apparently. Really? I guess if the sides are high enough, it doesn't ever get down low enough. Yeah, I guess it is a wave pool. Huh. He's actually very clever. I like it. I would not have thought to do this. I probably would have just kept making bigger and bigger guns. What's that string for? Oh, that's probably the anchor. Probably has one that fell over earlier. Jurassic Park boat. Also, apparently that video that was calling other things slop got taken down because other people were calling it slop. Huh. Is it a trebuchet? Yeah. Or I guess that's more of a catapult, isn't it? That doesn't look like it's that helpful. Honestly, think the wave machine would probably be more effective. The guy couldn't take criticism. I guess not. It doesn't have a counterweight, right, which means it's not a trebuchet. I mean, it's a very clever machine. It feels... Oh, okay. I was gonna say, it feels like kind of a downgrade comparison. Oh, I love the fact that he's doing this with, like, the way he animated that. That was very cool. Huh. Sure. Are you sure you're not going to tear it? I'm a little worried about that. This has got Kerbal Space Program vibes. Yeah. God, I should play Kerbal sometime. It's been forever. Oh, that sounded good. I want to see you play the new Besiege. Oh, I totally forgot about Besiege. I would say this probably doesn't need wheels, but it's okay. What happened to Kerbal 2? Like, didn't it just, like, suck ass? Huh? There you go. It seems very, like, it was bad and the studio died. Jesus. Well, you took out the helicopter. That's oh, that guy's dead. Yeah, that's not going to do enough damage. All right. Oh. What? How is the centrifuge pump not going to leak, man? It was early access? I see. It never properly launched. Jesus. Why did he censor that? Oh, is this meant to... Oh, huh. That's a lot of work to do something that made no sense. You're fine, Abby. You are. Risk of Rain 2 doesn't work anymore? Dude, what the fuck? I have no idea what he's building. This looks like another trebuchet or something. Oh, is it just a crane? Huh. This requires actual knowledge of engineering, because... Wop. Oh. Oh! He's got a... It's not hydraulics, but it would... Yeah, pneumatic. Huh. Okay. So, yeah, he's just gonna make a grabby arm with it. Huh. I don't know about y'all, but I'm learning a lot of shit about how little things like... Oh, that's adorable. The Technic sets were really cool. I was a fucking nerd as a kid, if you haven't figured it out by now. I went to space camp. Bootleg space camp, but space camp. And then this. Like, I love playing with this toy. And puzzles and shit. Like, I'm not beating the nerd allegations at all. Because I'm still just like, this is pretty fucking cool. What the fuck did you do in space camp? I made a microwave out of aluminum foil. And a shoebox. And I live in Texas. Or I did. Jesus fucking Christ. That's awesome.
New sword coming from Sordis.
Oh.
This is a $200 sword created by Hanbon Forge and sold by Sordis. Let's see what do we got here.
That's kind of a sudden end, but good video, yeah.
Nice addition. A synthetic silk sword bag, not bad. Saya is very simple, but according to the certification, we actually have a bullhorn here, which is very nice. Alright, let's move to the handle. So the handle is of course much longer than what we have in a katanas. Walking through doorways may be a little bit tricky right now, but hey, at least you may rest your arm on it. The wrapping seems tight. It could be tighter, but it's fine. We have a real ray skin in the handle, which is quite cool.
Oh, that's nice.
Made from alloy, which is quite cheap, but those aren't looking that bad at all.
Nah,
Okay,
it looks
so let's
fine.
move to the blade. We have over 17 centimeters of 1095 high carbon steel, so the blade should be very functional. It's highly polished, which is cool against the rust, but, well, it will love to get scratched. I really like that blade geometry. Reminds me of Cold Steel Nodachi, but this one is actually good. Okay, so the sword we have.
Well, no, show me the back of the blade. It's got no fucking hammer marks, and it has, like, I don't know what the back of the blade looks like. Like, how do I know if it's any good?
Is a nagamaki. So basically, when you are asked, do you want a sword or a polearm, and your answer is yes, this is what you get. Nagamaki literally means long wrapping, as the handle of this weapon can be extremely long. Those swords were popular during the Sengoku period, as they developed from Nakamaki no Tachi, while it developed from Odachi. This very long handle makes it quite weird to use, even though it is well balanced. Let's check the edge. Oh yes, that's fine. For $200, Hanbon Forge did a good job. Even though for a Nagamaki it's not that big,
Yeah, it looks kind of small for the
geometry requires some practice. So yeah, I'm quite happy about this product. Both Hanbon Forge and Sordis did a good job. Well, I need to buy more cardboards. But somehow it stands, so let's try to cut it. Once again, I will do it very lightly. I will stop the handle on my hip without using much force. Hey, it feels quite nice to cut with it. Of course I will do more cutting practice with this sword, a lot more. So yeah, thanks for watching.
I mean, his swing was shit, but I mean,
as much as I enjoyed this sword.
that's fine.
What if I try to do it? Nope. New sword!
Huh. Okay. Sure.
Here it is, the cheapest katana I could find on the internet. Only 60 bucks. Damn, this knife is really sharp. So, I got this one from an auction because normally those are going for like $150, which in my opinion is too much. We got a free stand, which is nice, but I need to be careful not to speak too loud because it may break. Oof, still in one piece. Okay, so some synthetic butt. Let's see what we get for the cheapest price on the market. Okay, it doesn't look that bad on the first sight. Of course, the diamonds aren't equal in the round.
No.
It's pretty loose. Okay,
Sure.
actually, it's very loose. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Inside we have this synthetic ray skin, which is made from some kind of rubber or plastic. Fittings are made from zinc and aluminium alloy. You can see and feel how cheap those are, but it's not that bad actually. Still better than cold steel Nodachi. Yeah, I'm
Jesus. What did Cold Steel do to him? What's the name of this guy? This guy goes by, I'm gonna spell his first name. Triafis, the Sword Wolf. His content is good. The only thing that's weird about it is the fact that he's a furry doing it.
going to hate on it for a while. Okay, let's check the blade.
Hmm.
So the habaki is shorter than the blade. That's unique.
Yeah, I doubt that the blade actually goes the entire length. And this one has faux hammer marks, which is kind of nice.
The blade is made from 1045 carbon steel, which is, in my opinion, the bare minimum of functionality. It's covered in this synthetic Hammond line, which, in my opinion, is just absolutely disgusting. Because it's giving me opinion is just Hammond line, which, in my opinion, this synthetic Hammond line.
Yeah, it is very synthetic looking, but like, I don't know.
In my opinion, is just absolutely disgusting. Because it's giving me this toyish or decorative look. I'm
Yeah.
going to remove it later because I prefer the look of natural steel. If a sword needs to be signed that it's a sword, it's probably not the best sword. So, those cogwheel seppas are usually used in a cheap swords. If you see a sword with this, most likely that's a cheap one. Let's wipe those machine oils off. Well, it seems sturdy, like there is no rattling and elements fit tight. Funny, but this one is actually well balanced. It's quite light and easy to move. I'm positively surprised. So, those swords are known as the bare minimum to start the cutting practice. I'm not sure if they are good because, well, let's be honest, cheap things. But in the terms of balance, it's quite good. It seems to be enough to learn the basic movements of the katana. But we are here for cutting, and it's terrible. It's really terrible. Like, the edge is very dull, it's sawing through the material. It seems it's not sharpened evenly, just like with the cold steel Nodachi. Hey, that's literally the same issue. Well, with the difference that this is 10 times.
Oh my god.
Let's see if it can cut the cardboard anyway. Again, I will do it very lightly, without much force. Oh my god, that was terrible. Yeah, the blade is terrible, the steel is terrible.
I honestly don't think that it's like that much worse than the one that he was showing just before this one. It looks alright. I mean, it's not good, but you know.
Nah, I don't like it. But it's 60 bucks and the steel is very soft, so let's fix it. First of all, I'm going to remove this synthetic Hammond. I can't look at this Hammond.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more like it. I'm going to do it on another side soon. So normally I would sharpen it on the water stones, but I don't really want to put that much effort into this katana.
No hammer marks or no fold lines on the back of the blade. So I mean, the hammer blows were fake then.
Okay, let's try it now.
Much better.
Yes, that's way better. Yay, now I could think this is a sword. Yep.
I will criticize that he is using the least cuttable area of the blade to cut shit with, but he seems to be more into European swords and sword stuff based on his stances that he takes.
This I can accept. Yeah, so of course I took the cut without my camera on, sorry. And the difference in how smooth the cut was, well, it's quite noticeable. So let's try it again. As long as the cardboard stands, we can cut it. Yeah, that felt a lot better. A lot. Let's try it again. Yeah, now it can imitate a sword. So if you know how to sharpen the blade and if you can find it for like 50, 60, maybe $17, that's not a bad choice. But hell never for 150. Time for 500.
Yeah, all right. Wild. Well, they're starving, the kitties are. Is this Hugbees? Because if this is any bit related to Hugbees...
Rice! This is so if the person playing on this laptop...
I don't think that's him. At least it's not Shadiversity. Yeah, I mean... This guy, I think, has about as much knowledge as Shad. It is him? Can you take that shit off of here? I don't want to interact with that guy at all. I noticed he followed me the other day, so someone must have snitched that I don't care for him, but I don't think it's a secret. It's a personal thing, and it has nothing that... Y'all don't have to do anything, but it's just my personal, I don't care for him. Let me see if I can find... I know there was an art yesterday, and I would talk about it and show it to you guys. But also, where is it? I can't find it. I think it's in notifications. It was on, here it is. This is from Ellie Coral on Twitter. I asked that people make shit art if you're going to post it on Twitter. And, like, you're going in the right direction, Ellie. I just need you to make it, like, twice as shit. Because, like, X is now just scraping any and all images. So, like, I'm like, well, let's just make them, let's just feed it shit information. You know? And that way, the only thing that Grok knows how to do is make shit art. It's the first attempt. That being said, I actually really like it. It's like, it's got a very cool style. Good sir, per your request, I present the thought-provoking art that conveys the search for human connection and understanding so that machines and the endless searching for knowledge may learn from our examples. Thank you. It's the first attempt. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. I love how the hands are, like, I love this here, the way he's got his hand down, but this is like, yeah, this is something that happened. I went to a thing, and there, I got up and I said my speech, and then when I was getting back to my chair, a guy was like, you good? Any chance you're gonna move to Blue Sky? I am currently on Blue Sky. It's RevScarecrow. I am gonna try and put together something that doesn't have that's a better Boru option, which we're gonna work on some here. And I'm sorry I haven't got around to that. I've just been not able to. But anyway, yeah, no, a guy complimented me on my speech that I gave to the city council, and they agreed with my take. But yeah, and it was like, I don't know what to do. Discord would be fine if you let non-subs in. Yeah, basically that's what we're working on right now, is trying to set that up so that way it's actually safe. And I set up the community thing, and I gave Luigi Guy a lot more modding privileges, but I need to actually make a thing and then probably set up Moobot to tweet links. That should be ready. Thank you, Luigi Guy. But yeah, I just want to make sure that it's nice and secure, because like that was a main concern for people. Or if it's not going to be secure, I don't want to do it. I don't know what else you want to do with the configs. I don't either. But thank you for this art. I also like the Moomin and make stuff great again. The funny thing is the guy kind of looked like this. Like, I didn't describe the gentleman, but Ellie got the guy. Like, that's him. That's the man. Like, this guy looks more like the guy than this looks like me. Let me put it that way. This is way too accurate. Which is funny as shit because I did no description. I have no idea how Ellie did that. Alright. Okay, I guess I should say this right before I go. It looks like a majority of people want 2 weeks. So I think I might at everyone due to popular demand, I think we should extend the date for the Game Jam submission to for 2 more weeks. So instead of ending on the 30th, what is 2 weeks from the 30th? 1, 2, the 13th. So November 13th. Is what I said, right? Let me double check one more time just to make sure I got that right. Yeah, November 13th. Hard work. I'm excited to see what you have done. There we go. I think adding an extra 2 weeks, that's what most people were saying as like the amount of time that they needed to do. So yeah. Psychic read. I know, right? Hopefully that helps you guys out. Don't fret. I don't want people to be fretting about the stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna push the deadline for the games. If you want to release your game earlier than that, you want to release it on the day it happened. Wait, what? Nothing happened. Just people were stressed out about the game jam, and so I've decided to extend the deadline for it for 2 weeks to increase so that way people are okay and not scared. Let me see if there's any let's see who's live. Chocovania is live, Limes is live, Chai is live, and Giga is live. Why not we raid Chai? That sounds like a good plan. Raid Morning Chai. Pretty sure I spelled that right. There we go. All right, I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you on Wednesday.